Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth and the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case. Banana robbers! They were laughing as they took the last of the money from the friendly banana bank. They knew that after this day, that they would be the richest bananas of the banana world. They had to make a quick escape, though. The alarms were ringing in their ears. The banana cops were on their way. They could just hear the cops as they ran. Be Banana and Go Banana made a great team. They were the best bananas at robbing. They knew that after they robbed, they would have to split the money and have to pretend that they were innocent. They were also great actors. They knew to be part of the banana stampede after they robbed, so they could pretend like they were there the whole time. The banana stampede took place every day at the banana park. It was the best place to hide after doing something wrong. Everyone at the banana stampede knew how it felt to do something wrong. They were all banana criminals at one point. They all got the wrath of the sacred rule breaking punishment. They all stopped committing crimes after that. Once they reached the banana stampede, they were very hangry, so they killed a fellow banana and ate him. They hid the remains of the fellow banana. They knew that if they got caught, then they would be in huge trouble. They heard the banana cops coming. The cops started asking around if they saw anyone who came from the direction of the friendly banana bank. One of the bananas started crying. She told everyone that Be Banana and Go Banana killed her husband. The cops took them to Banana Court. They finally started court after a long lecture about how you drive banana cars, which was way off topic. They had the whole banana stampede there that was not causing a stampede currently. They had a bunch of chairs in random groups. The judge was sitting down in a giant chair with bananas all over it. He also had a small desk with a banana volunteer to be the hammer. Welcome to the all-wonderful court, where we find out if you are guilty or not. Da Banana Judge told everyone, "Everyone take your seats and be quiet unless I tell you to speak. Today, we have two problems. The friendly banana bank has been robbed with not a single trace of money left. There was also a murder at the banana stampede that was caught by Mrs. Banana, witnessed. Mrs. Banana, will you tell us what you saw?" Of course, I was talking to him, and all of the sudden, I saw a knife through him. I looked behind him, and I saw Be Banana and Go Banana with the knife. Then they ate every single little piece of him. It was like a nightmare. Mrs. Banana declared. Be Banana and Go Banana. You two have earned 10 seconds in jail so far. Da Banana, judge said. Mr. Peel, you said you saw who stole the money from the Friendly Banana Bank. Will you tell us what you saw? Yes, I was walking my banog, and I saw Be Banana and Go Banana walk into the bank. I stalled so I could see what they were doing. After a while, they came out with stacks and stacks of money. I ran as fast as I could to the nearest cop. I told them what I saw. That day, I also saw them steal all my banog bones. I was so mad. I wanted to tell the cops, but I thought that it wasn't as important as other things. Mr. Peel said, Thank you, Be Banana and Go Banana. Will you tell us your side of the story to see if you get 15 seconds in the corner or not? Da Banana, judge said. Yes, da wonderful judge. We were at the banana restaurant, and then when we were done, we saw Mr. Peel steal the money. We saw him run to his house and then tell the cops lies. When we went down to the banana stampede and saw Mrs. Banana murder her own husband, Go Banana said. By this point, the room was filled with murmurs. Everyone was standing, and they were scared to know who was the actual imposter. The volunteer banana hit his loudly and hard on purposely. The room filled with silence. Thank you. I cannot tell who is guilty or not, so you four get to go to jail for 20 seconds. Da Banana, judge said. Be bananas. Go bananas. Mrs. Bananas, and Mr. Peel's faces were filled with shock. The banana cops pushed them into a jail. 20 seconds later, they were free to go out. Be Banana and Go Banana knew that that was an awful punishment, and that they would never commit a crime again. But one thing bothered them. They wanted to know the punishments. They knew that they shouldn't commit another crime to do it, but catch someone committing a crime. One day, they reported someone stealing someone's jewelry. It was Mr. Chop, who was a retired server. Once they got to court, there was another lecture about how it is so easy to turn sides, and another lecture after that about what kind of bananas make videos. Finally, court started, and they found out that Mr. Chop was actually just helping a friend return jewelry. No one was put in jail, but on the way out, while DA Judge was having a conversation with other people, Be Banana and Go Banana stole the sacred rule book. They almost got caught, and they decided to take a drive. They didn't take just any drive. They took the longest drive ever in the banana history. The drive took 12 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. The next day, they went on the second longest drive in the banana history. They drove through mountains and valleys, and finally onto the banana interstate. Murder. Everything happened in a flash. I was just about to go to sleep when I heard the telephone ring. I used a rotary dial phone, which meant that I won't know who's calling me. I walked over to the phone and held it up to my ear. "Hello?" I answered. "Hello. This is the Glasscam Police Department. I am the sheriff of this town. You have been convicted of the murder of a person named Paul Smith, who was killed this night. I have sent a few officers to escort you to the department," the sheriff replied. Excuse me, but I haven't done anything wrong," I replied, stammering. "I was in my home during the evening." "Yeah, right. Tell that to the judge, kid," he said in a sarcastic tone. A knock on the door was heard a few moments later. As I opened the door, a swarm of officers piled into the room, some with guns facing at me. One of them, who I assumed was the chief of police, got a pair of handcuffs and tied them around my wrists. "You have the right to remain silent," said the chief. I tried telling him that I was innocent, but he said the same words that the sheriff said. What a coincidence, I thought to myself, as I was being taken to the back seat of the police car. I don't remember much after that. While I was in the car, I kept arguing that I was innocent, but the officers ignored me. My height and weight were taken after I got to the station, and I was placed in a small cell. It wasn't cozy at all. Just the life essentials were there. A bed, sink, and toilet. I was too weak and tired to stand, so I started to lie on the bed, starting to drift into my sleep. I woke up to the sound of an officer opening my cell. I got up and was put in handcuffs again. He told me I was going to a trial. I had no lawyer, so they just gave me one. From the looks of the lawyer's crinkled and dirty tie, his wild hair, and slightly broken glasses, I could tell I was going to lose in this trial. A few minutes later, a car came, and I was taken into the back seat. What felt like hours later, I was in front of the judge, who would decide my fate. Looking at the spectators, I saw a group of people in tears. I assumed they were the victims' parents. They saw me looking in their direction. They scowled at me and turned their heads in disgust. I couldn't take it. For all my life, I have never made any mistakes, so it would be unreasonable if I was accused of murder. Thinking about this made my head spin. After my testimony and the lawyer's argument with the victim's family's lawyer, it was time for the jury to decide. A few minutes later, the judge said the final statement of the trial. I only remembered a little bit. The accused, James Johnson, proven guilty, with no chance of parole, no chance of bail, can only be released until further evidence is discovered. This mumbo-jumbo is gonna take forever. Let's get to the point. James Johnson will serve a life sentence. Then, the gavel was heard. Snug fit? The officers joked when I finished switching my shirt and pants to the ugly, bright orange prison uniforms. Cell number 13 was where I was headed, just when I thought I had the chance to be released. The number 13 blocks the tunnel of hope, I thought to myself in a saddened tone. I wanted to prove everyone wrong, especially my friends, family, and the victim's family. But now, that chance was disappearing every second I was in this building. My family came to visit every so often. Mother and my 23-year-old brother came to visit me every day. Father died when I was 12, a few years after my brother was born. Mother always told me that I was going to be proven innocent. Greg, my brother, told me that he will find evidence to get me out. I chuckled. Everyone knows that Greg hated using his brain for education purposes, but this time he had some hope in his eyes, which I never noticed before. Being beaten up by other prisoners took some time being used to. The food there was the worst. I couldn't be somewhere without at least one person watching me. But most of the time, it was the prisoners looking for a fight. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. That day when my family visited, I asked them that I didn't like staying here anymore. Just a little while longer, Mother said with hope. I stared at my brother, wondering what Mother said. Question: good news or bad news? Greg asked. Why? I replied. Just answer the question, he said in an impatient tone. Okay. Calm down, I said. Bad news. I found a lead that might prove you innocent, but I hit a dead end, he said in a sad voice, while lowering his head in shame. But the good news is I broke through the dead end and found some evidence, he exclaimed, his head now up again. I was in shock. Without controlling it, I smiled. It was so goofy that Mother started to laugh, but in a hushed voice. My brother tried holding his laugh in, but he couldn't stop the burst that almost made him fall off his chair. Your court trial will begin tomorrow, he said. For the rest of the day, the thought of leaving this place made my heart feel warm. The day passed by without me even knowing it. Before sleeping, the thought struck me. What if the evidence doesn't work? Or the evidence proves me guilty again, I thought, before drifting to sleep. The next morning, I got up in a hopeful mood. The trial begins in about an hour. I quickly got ready and was taken into the court. I saw Mother, Greg, and the victim's family there. The victim's family was in a sour mood. I guess they were angry because, in their point of view, the murderer of their son was going to testify again, saying that he was innocent after being proven guilty. When Greg's evidence was in the spotlight, I thought that this might actually work. It showed that I was in my house the whole time during the murder. It showed what I did on that device during that time, which was mostly binge-watching a series. After the evidence was shown, the jury made their decision and passed it to the judge. The judge read it out loud. The accused, James Johnson, had previously been proven guilty, had no chance of parole, no chance of bail, and could only be released until further evidence is discovered. But now the evidence has been found. The jury and I have reviewed it. The conclusion was made. The decision is, exclaimed the judge in a very dramatic and suspenseful moment. James Johnson is innocent. I was happier than ever, but didn't make any goofy grins this time. The victim's family nodded in sorrow and regret for making those rude faces at me. I was taken home, where familiar noises from the house and street filled me up with adrenaline. I walked out of the house and sat on the porch when I saw my family driving their car into the driveway. They hugged me and sat on the porch. We laughed and talked together as if nothing had happened. While enjoying ourselves, I started to ponder, what will I do next? What would you like, sir? Sir, we need you. Ed, please don't panic. Tell me what happened. A man died at 4th Rose Street in Pie A Trust Bakery. Pray, tell his name. Robert Jr., business tycoon Robert Jr. A sudden alarm switches on in my mind. You are right, sir. I hang up the phone. A new case is like coffee shots for me. Sudden shots of energy with a sudden smell of success. Being a private detective was tough in 1959. The remnants of World War were still haunting people's minds. So basically, everyone was behind food and money. Hence, the rise of murders and death of rich men were the constant headline of newspapers and weekly magazines. The police were sometimes behind the culprit, or were sometimes the culprit themselves. My first successful case was about Dorothy Maddock, a murder mystery that had shaken the neighborhood. At that time, I was 19, who had only read Sherlock Holmes as his curriculum and used to write some articles for a newspaper column. Back then, I took the case for justice, not for fame or success. With my wit and observation, I nabbed the murderer to everyone's surprise and dismay. The success of the case made fame kiss my toes, but the police grew cold feelings towards me. First, the bitterness was one-sided. Later, with the continued collision of our thinking and ideas, it became a competition for us to prove each other wrong. Coming to the case, Robert Jr. was famous as well as an established businessman. He was constantly in the newspaper due to the rounds of an affair between him and a beautiful singer. The case was a gold mine for the press because now it had glamour and stardom. I reached the spot. It was a small sit-in bakery with musty brown walls and white windows. It was unusual for a rich man to dine here. People were thronging outside the bakery to view the sudden death. Police were having a tough time trying to control the mob. I honk my Ford car on purpose to gain the attention of the press. In seconds, a group of photographers and cameramen with their journalists were rushing towards my car. I took some time to come out of my car, but when I came out, I was surrounded by the sudden flashes which blind my irises. There is a constant tugging and screaming of journalists at my face. I raise my hand to silence everyone, to bring their attention towards me. I will ensure that the culprit is caught and the innocents are given justice. With the help of the police, we will solve the crime as soon as possible. Till then, please maintain your integrity and work ethics. I make a straight beeline towards the bakery, where I'm coldly welcomed by Inspector Houston. Don't come here, fella, without any prior information. Take your media attention somewhere else. He smirks. It would be better if you pay enough attention to your duty, rather than observing my style and sensibility. He stares at me and spits on the ground. So what are the details of the case, Mr. Houston? According to the witness, Robert entered the bakery with singer Sasha. They ordered a lime tart with lemonade. Then, in the middle of the conversation, an argument burst open. A few seconds later, he asks for water, which was given by Sasha from her bottle. In moments, he clenched his head and passed out. So, where is the singer now? She is in the basement of the bakery, hiding from the press. Bring in all the witnesses, and let's interview each one there itself. We agreed to investigate the scene first. Nothing was weird, nor there was anything suspicious. Then we interrogated each eyewitness. First was the singer Sasha, a beautiful woman in her early 20s, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Her cheeks were stained by mascara, and her lips quivered from the constant crying. It was odd that a young girl like her was interested in a man who was in his late 40s. But it is not odd in a patriarchal society. I gave her my handkerchief. A man gotta respect a lady's emotion. So, Miss Sasha, what happened during your brunch at the bakery? Robert called me here to discuss some private matters. He was stressed for the past few weeks. Can you guess what he was about to discuss? I ask. She moves her head from side to side with few sobs. Miss Sasha, when Robert asked for water. Instead, you could have called the waiter. Why did you provide it from your bottle? Robert liked clean filter water. He always used to question the quality of water at restaurants. Hence, I used to carry my own source. Did you hand over the bottle to the police? She nodded. The next person was the waitress, the only witness who was present at the bakery. A young woman in her mid-20s, with hazel eyes and raven black hair. She was confident with her body language and was least affected by the sudden death. What's your name? Rebecca Taylor. For how long you are working here? Since the past few weeks. Can you describe what happened this morning? Mr. Robert was coming to our bakery for the last few days, but this time he came with Miss Sasha. He ordered tart, and she ordered lemonade. It's wrong to eavesdrop on anybody's conversation, so I was at my counter cleaning the stoves. But in the middle of their conversation, they started arguing. Mr. Robert was demanding Miss Sasha to leave her career. Then he asked for water, to which she gave her own bottle, and in a matter of seconds, he clenched his head and fell on the ground. Where was the owner of the shop? Every morning, the owner goes to buy the supplies for the rest of the day. He went out as usual. The next person was the cleaner boy, who was not the witness. But he was there in the basement of the bakery when the incident took place. What's your name? Vade Danish. So, Vade Miss Rebecca told me that you went to the basement to take a puff of the cigarette. Sometimes you had to twist other people's confession to extract the truth. No, sir. Miss Rebecca had seen a few mice in our basement, so I went there to get rid of them. Okay, so for how long are you working here? 2 years. Everything was done. We talked to the witness. We investigated the scene, but couldn't find a clue. The police, as well as I, was waiting for the medical reports of the corpse, but it had a lot of time to it. Miss Sasha was on house arrest, and other people were under observation. I took a few days to search for the missing links in this case, but could not find one. This morning, I decided to give a visit to the bakery. Through the glass windows, I could see Rebecca taking orders from the customer and Vade helping his owner. I enter inside, and Rebecca gasps her breath seeing me. Did I frighten you, Miss Rebecca? No. I mean, yes. The incident has made us face the worst fears that we never could have expected. What will you like, sir? She asks in a humble tone. Oh, nothing. I just want to sit and relax for a few seconds. Nothing else. She goes away, leaving me in silence. I try to connect the information that I had about this case, but couldn't figure out any missing links. A force knocks at my temples. The migraine bouts were reoccurring every morning. I press my fingers at my head to ease out the pain. I search my pockets for the container of pills, but I couldn't find them. Sir, are you okay? I see Rebecca beside my table. Yeah, everything is fine. Nothing to bother about. She puts a tray in front of me. It has herb tea and strawberry custard. It's for your migraine, sir. It will soothe your nerves. I thank her and dig in my spoon because I have skipped my breakfast this morning. At the last spoon, a thought occurred to me. To clear it, I needed to meet the doctor who was examining the body as well as the reports. I rush out of the bakery without paying the bill and race my car to the hospital. Doctor, did Robert had a migraine? Because according to the witness, he clenched his head before passing out. Did he get a migraine attack while having the arguments with the singer? I don't know, lad. Maybe he had, maybe he hadn't. The technology isn't so developed to bring in the conclusions. What did you find in the reports? The mystery is that we couldn't find anything with his body. The brain and his other organs were intact, but his blood reports are weird. What does the report say? That during their argument, there was the sudden spike of salts in his blood flow. He had large quantities of salts in his body during his death. which we call hypernatremia. In hypernatremia, a person typically feels thirsty. The most serious symptoms of hypernatremia result from brain dysfunction. Severe hypernatremia can lead to confusion, muscle twitching, seizures, coma, and death. So, how did this condition occur in his body? Any clue? We couldn't find that, but the bottle that Miss Sasha gave had typically weird ingredients and salts. I think you should further investigate it. The police were informed about the reports, and we both rushed to the villa of the singer, who is currently under house arrest. Miss Sasha, we found salts and weird ingredients in your bottle, and Mr. Robert died from severe hypernatremia. The justice of Sword points at you, because before he had passed away, he demanded water from you. I drink salt-infused water to keep my voice intact and to keep throat infections away. She started to sob and pleaded in front of us that she was innocent. She was taken in for police custody, and the court will manage the rest of the hearing. We gave a press conference about the case and addressed questions of the media. After a few days, I visited the bakery again to pay my pending bill and to meet the staff. The staff members were happy to see me and greeted me with warm smiles. I paid my bill and talked to each staff personally. Rebecca was happy and asked me about my migraine conditions. That day, how did you know that I got a mild migraine attack? My mother was suffering from migraine, so I recognized the symptoms really fast. So, you live with your mother? No, sir. My mother passed away a year ago. I live on my own. I'm sorry to hear about your mother. Well, take this. I take $50 from my wallet and hand it over to her. Take it as your tip and use it wisely. She takes the money and her warm finger brush with mine. Her cheeks tinge like strawberries, and she gives me a peck on the cheek. I smile at her and walk towards the door. Sir, please do come here again. I turn around and say, I will come if I have time. I know you will. I nod to her and sit into my car and drive to my home with a smile. I was watching a soap opera on television while cooking my dinner. Then I hear a knock on the front door. Who is there? I shout, switching off the television. Sir, it's me, Daniel. I take a sigh of relief and opened the door. Daniel was my counterpart, as well as my personal spy. He used to track the backstory of the cases, as well as the victim. So, Daniel, what brings you here? The back history of Robert Jr. Tell me the juicy details. He was a drug dealer in South Carolina and was once arrested while delivering a load of cocaine capsules. This businessman earns the white money with the help of the black money, I said. Listen, he used to execute his plans with the help of a female doctor. But after his arrest, she was absconding and still is on the wanted list. Here, see her photo. I take the file to view, and my head spins. I reach the kitchen counter for support. I could not believe my eyes. It was Rebecca. What happened? Daniel asked. She is the waitress who works at the bakery where Robert had died. For a few seconds, we glared at each other and rushed to our cars. I sped up my car, not worrying about getting a fine. I rush into the bakery and shout, "Where is Rebecca?" Vade rushes towards me with a note in his hand. "Rebecca quit her job this morning and left a note for you." I take the note and read, "Dear Thomas, take a warm coffee with a heavy breakfast to curb your migraine attacks. Before sleeping, drink a nice herbal tea. It will cure the migraine away. And what else will you like, sir? Your friend, Rebecca." Something catches my eye across the street, and I rush towards the window to see clearly. It's Rebecca, with rendered auburn hairs and a wicked smile. She waves at me, gives a flying kiss, and in the next second disappears. Muddled murder. The first thing I saw when I woke up was the blood. My mind went into a full panic mode, and I flipped out. I started checking all over myself to see where I had been injured, my bloody hands smearing the blood all over my clothes. Then I realized I wasn't injured, which could only mean one thing. It was someone else's blood, but whose? I had no idea. In fact, I had no idea where I was. All I could see around me was a dark, narrow street. I was standing on the sidewalk, quite far away from the nearest streetlight. Above me was the clear night sky. A handful of stars shone down upon me, and I felt that they were supposed to give me some comfort, but my heart rate refused to slow down. And then I saw it. There was a body on the curb, barely 10 meters away from me. My natural instinct was to go and check on the person, but something stopped me. I wondered what, but my memory refused to provide me with anything in my past. I tiptoed closer. Not another soul in the alley as I went and checked. I was still a couple of meters away from the man when I realized he wasn't breathing. There was a pool of blood spreading from his torso and onto the sidewalk. The man was dead, and I had blood on my hands. I didn't need any memory to add up the two. A car's headlights suddenly flashed to life in front of me, and the engine revved on. It reversed a bit, and then sped past me, barely giving me enough time to register the man sitting inside. From the small pharmacy in front of me, a short, bearded man came out and started pulling down the shutter. I did the first thing that came to my mind. I ran. I had no idea how long I had run for, but I am sure it was a pretty long time because my t-shirt was completely soaked in sweat by the time I stopped. And it was an early winter evening. I realized I was on a bridge, a few cars going by, couples walking, holding hands, families with little children. I wondered who my parents were, if I was married or had a romantic lover. If I only had my memories back, my life. But the sight of my hand snapped me right out of those thoughts. It didn't matter, because nobody would want to be related to a murderer. I didn't know if someone else had killed him, or if it had been me. But suddenly, it occurred to me that it would be better if I didn't know. If I did remember my past, what if I realized that I had murdered him? Not only him, but maybe others too. Just that thought made me doubt myself, and wanting my memories back seemed like a dangerous option. I descended the bridge to reach the turbid river flowing past me, and thankfully washed up my bright red hands in the water. My hands were numb by the time I stood up to return to the upper roads. That was when I heard something. "Oh, it was easy as cake," a man said. "Are you sure no one was there?" asked a woman. "I think I saw a girl, and she saw me." I panicked and drove forward, but the car hit her head, and she collapsed to the ground. I didn't know what to do, and I stopped to check, but she was stirring up, so I raced away, the man replied. It was coming from the other side of the bridge, beyond the wall separating the riverbank for the construction of the bridge. I tiptoed over to it and peeked out to see who was talking. Smoke blew out from a man's dark lips as he put a cigarette into his mouth again, leaning on the wall. The woman was standing across from him, arms crossed, in oversized, baggy clothes. She had a beanie on her head and wore huge, funky glasses. She was facing me, but I was well hidden in the dark. They continued talking, not caring to keep their voices down. "You dolt, the body is still there?" the woman asked. "Abandoned on the sidewalk. Shouldn't be noticed by anyone till tomorrow morning. By then, we'll be long gone." The man was nonchalant. The woman nodded, a bit anxious, while he smoked for a minute more. Then they both started climbing up the riverbank. I followed them after some time, composing my thoughts and struggling to remember something. I thought I must have waited for a minute or two, but I somehow still saw the car leaving with the two people in it, and the slate of my memory, which had been wiped clean, managed to store the number in it. Police sirens made their way to my ears, and I was a bit surprised my blank mind recognized it. Had I heard them many times before? Was I actually a criminal? What was my past? I somehow didn't want to find out. I just stood frozen there, above the riverbank, in the headlights of the police cars, as they advanced towards me. I was literally unable to move, dead tired and fatigued. "Hands up in the air," came a voice over the loudspeaker. My addled mind did as I was told. The next few minutes were a blur as the cops came out, handcuffed me, charged me for the murder of a famous entrepreneur, and took me to the police station for questioning. Somewhere along the way, I fell unconscious. Did you kill Mr. Pop? I knew that was the name the entrepreneur was known by, but it sounded funny. I bit back a chuckle. "I don't know," I answered, just like I had the 3 last times. "I have all night," the officer told me. "Keep sitting then. I hope your butt doesn't hurt." I almost smirked. He glared daggers at me, and then stood up and left the room. A few minutes later, another officer entered. a plump, middle-aged woman. Answer honestly. Did you kill Mr. Pop? I have been telling you honestly. I have no idea whether I did or I didn't. I just woke up with no memory of where I was or who I was. I yelled at her. Yelled. She nodded in sympathy. Quite common in criminals. I was too tired to correct her, but I was exasperated. Why couldn't they just understand I was telling the truth? Nothing in my head tells me that I killed that man, so I don't know, I declared. There is quite some evidence, you know. The blood on your clothes matches with his. I looked down at the red spots and smears on my clothes and winced. And a shop owner in the alley says that he saw a girl with a description like yours run away from the dead body. Same orange t-shirt, same long braid, and same camo pants. Now tell me, what am I supposed to believe? She raised an eyebrow. I really don't know, I said. The description was me all right, and I had run away. But had I killed the man? Unsure guilt surged through my veins, and the officer noticed the beads of sweat on my forehead. If I was the murderer, I was just making their jobs harder. But then, I didn't want to find out. Unsure guilt was stressful enough, and I didn't know how I could live with the knowledge that I had killed a human being in cold blood. Are you sure you don't want to confess anything? She asked with a tone of finality in her sweet voice. I would confess if I remembered anything, I replied. Then I suddenly remembered something. Wait, what's wrong? The lady officer leaned forward, eyebrows knitted together. I saw that car leave the bridge tonight. The two people in it, they were talking about something suspicious, I said, racking my brain for the words. The man raised an eyebrow. What? I'm not sure. They were saying that they left a body on the sidewalk. A girl had seen it. They hit her head and run away. They were planning to escape tonight. I narrated the incident. How does that make a difference? It does, I said, as I saw my spark of hope being snatched away with it. You should check. I remember the car number. You know the number plate, huh? The two police officers had tracked the number plate to a road by the river, where a car had been abandoned. Go home, the woman told me. I don't know where I live. Then wait here. We're going alone. I scowled as I followed them out of the police station, and their car revved away. Then I saw a cab passing me and jumped in. Follow that car! We followed the car for 25 minutes until we reached a road running parallel to the river. The police car had stopped behind the car I had seen before, and I told the cab driver to park behind it and jumped off. I rushed to the shore where I could see the river and a small boathouse in the distance. The river was wide at that point, the current slow. To my left were the mountains into which the river bent, and my right were the police officers near the boathouse about half a kilometer away. I saw the man and woman I had seen earlier, along with a dark guy in shoes, pull out a rusty old motorboat and push it into the water and jump on. "Put your hands in the air. You cannot escape tonight." The officers pointed their gun at them. In their surprise, someone suddenly activated the turbines, and they sped ahead into the river, moving towards my side. The motorboat was slow. The turbines were sputtering and malfunctioning as the boat raced away, forearm the routing and chasing officers. I don't know what I was thinking, but I barely hesitated a second before jumping into the river to my left. They were speeding towards my side, cutting through the middle of the river. I was perpendicularly closer, and I knew I could reach the center before they did. I swam in smooth, rapid strokes, cutting through the water like a literal fish as I aimed towards the center where they would reach in about 10 seconds. I think they were too preoccupied keeping their eyes on the officers because they certainly didn't see me coming. The cold water didn't faze me. It was like it was part of my blood. Of course, the adrenaline counteracted it, and I had no trouble speeding through the limpid surface. As expected, I reached 1 second before their boat. As it zoomed past me, I somehow managed to grab hold of the end. I clambered on, somehow still unnoticed by the 3 people, while the officers stared at me, flabbergasted. They were too scared to shoot, let it hurt me, so it all depended on me. I crept forward and elbowed the cigarette man in the neck sharply, that he fell to the ground immediately, somehow unconscious. The woman turned to me, ready to battle in her large hanging clothes. I ducked to avoid her punch, grabbed her arm, and twisted it behind her back. Then I kicked her off the boat as it continued speeding away. The last man was the one with the shades, driving the boat. He stepped out of the seat while the boat continued towards the hills and turned to face me. Even though I couldn't see his eyes, a chill ran down my spine, and he attacked. I think my brain was a little slow to process as his kick swept me off my feet and knocked the air out of my lungs. Panting, I pushed at the floor to get up, while he grabbed my hair and pushed my head towards the whirring motors of the boat. He pressurized me into the blades, while I used all my physical strength to hold my head up. He pushed once, twice, and the 3rd time, I finally got a grip with one hand to ram the other into his sternum. As he doubled back, I realized that the boat was heading straight for a wall of soil and bushes. A hill was straight ahead. I rushed towards the wheel, but before I could rush it, the man got up and tugged me back. I wrestled with him, watching the imminent crash drifting closer. He kicked my thigh, and I launched a punch at his shoulder, ran again for the wheel. Grabbing the cool metal, I yanked it to the right, just as the boat curved around the edge of the hill, and barely avoided the collision. The man with shades had managed to stand up at the end of the boat, but my sudden turn threw him off balance, and he splashed into the water. I steered the boat towards the shore as I saw the other two criminals climbing out and being ambushed by the police officers. I finally parked along the bank and stepped out, my mind in a whirl, even more muddled than before. The two officers emerged, dragging along the two criminals. The woman went on to the boat and brought the third guy, then came back, and both of them patted my back. But I wasn't paying attention. My mind was elsewhere. How did I know how to do all that? How did I swim so well, or fight so brutally? The worst thought crept into my head. I could be a trained assassin or mercenary. I was too much of an expert, and I had been pretty close to the dead man. I was scared that I had led the police on a wild goose chase. I must be the real criminal. I must have killed Mr. Pop. I didn't want to find out. When I voiced my concerns, the police officers waved them away, too busy congratulating me. But my head refused to believe them, fearful of what my past could hold. Hey, do you remember me? A man rushed into the hospital ward, worry lines creasing over his forehead. Two people who claimed to be my parents were standing on one side of my bed, explaining to me that he was my brother. I'm sorry, but no, I said, and he looked like he was about to burst into tears. My parents leaned over and hugged him, as they also squeezed my hands. I saw the two police officers appear from the door. They had huge grins on their faces. All three of them confessed to the murder, and we also found them guilty of a couple more. They have been duly imprisoned. Great work, kid, the man said. And on top of that, it was announced a couple of hours ago that you are going to be awarded a bravery medal for your courage. The woman was about to jump up and down. I found it difficult to smile. But how was I able to defeat them so easily? How could I fight so well, swim so smoothly? Are you sure I'm not a danger to society? My brow was furrowed. No, not at all. The man who was supposed to be my father guffawed and slapped my thigh. Don't worry. I'll tell you a bit about yourself. You are 26, won 7 medals for swimming in high school, and now teach martial arts at a renowned academy. The eyes in the forest. The forest was bright and warm. The sunlight dappled across the leaf-covered ground in a way that evoked images of autumn holiday, brochures, and children laughing. There was a slight breeze rustling the upper branches, but down at ground level, all it did was bring the warmth of the sun in from out in the meadows all around. For everyone not working, it was a weekend to head out and make the most of the last of summer before the cold settled in. It was, I thought, a terrible place for a murder scene. "All right, Andrews?" my boss asked as he came over. Despite the fair weather, he was still clutching a takeout cup of coffee like a lifeline, and I could smell the alcohol from whatever he'd been doing last night. "All right, sir. I didn't think you were on duty today." Judging by the state of Detective Matthews, neither had he. However reckless he was on his nights off, Matthews was a consummate professional out in the field when the public could see him. Tell me about it. But 4 bodies in 3 months. No one gets their Saturdays when that happens. Some of us didn't have many Saturdays anyway, but I only gave him a tight smile in response. It wasn't right to bitch about hours and shift patterns when there was a dead body in the vicinity. Another car pulled up into the cordoned off area, and Matthews turned to watch it. It wasn't a vehicle I recognized, but I wouldn't have considered myself an expert on the department's cars. Besides, 4 bodies in 3 months. This was when the top brass got called in, and all the specialists scraped up from wherever they usually lurked. Matthews was having the same thought. More goddamn people sticking their noses in, telling me what to do. He walked back over to the car park, still muttering, leaving me to my solo guard duty. The investigators would go over the area first. Then maybe I'd get called in to help sweep the area. Until then, my contribution to catching a murderer was to stand still and keep people away. Of course, to get to me, they'd have already had to get through 2 other police cordons. I was nothing more than window dressing at this stage. But the more serious the crime, the more window dressing the bosses wanted. Couldn't let the press take a photo of empty space now, could we? Whoever had just turned up seemed to causing something of a stir with the other detectives. They all had more sense than to start shouting. But I recognized the way Matthews had started pacing. A few words drifted across the forest to me, though I didn't get much other than tone. No one was happy about the new person turning up, and I wondered what sort of specialist would cause such a stink. Maybe it's our own Sherlock Holmes, I thought to myself with a snort. It would make the shift more interesting, at least. But there was no way that Sherlock Holmes would work with a modern policing system. All those deductions and assumptions, the evidence courts would be laughing themselves to death. The new arrival was coming my way. I wiped the smirk from my face and stood up a little straighter, staring dead ahead as I watched them out the corner of my eye. Smart suit, skinny glasses, slightly cropped tie, and far younger than I'd expected for a specialist. At a guess, I'd put the man at a few years older than me, early 30s or so, although he could just have had one of those faces that ages well. His height didn't help, and though the ground was uneven, he was about eye level with me when he stopped. "Officer Andrews?" he asked, scanning me up and down. I'd braced for this moment. Who doesn't love a woman in uniform? But there was nothing to his look. It was more like he was trying to read my name on my legs, rather than checking out any curve they may or may not have had. Yes, sir. Even though he was nameless, anyone out of uniform at a crime scene was pretty much guaranteed to be my superior. Better safe than sorry. Can you take me down to the crime scene, please? One moment, sir. I'd barely tapped the call button on my radio before Matthews started waving his arm at me and giving the thumbs up. I tried to nod back, though he didn't watch long enough to see. Right this way, sir. I led the way through the trees to where the body had been found, all the while fighting down the urge to kick the leaves as I went. Precise placement wasn't worth preserving when the leaves were so light and likely to move naturally, but it was hardly very professional. We came round one particularly large tree, meant to keep the victim out of sight, we figured. And there she was. No name, no purse, no shoes, clothing torn. Despite the warm air, I shivered. There was no getting used to this bit. Here, sir, I said. It was obvious, but it didn't feel right to just wave and go, ta-da. Poor woman needed some respect in death, even if she didn't get any in life. Thank you, Andrews. You can go back to your post now. Are you sure, sir? Solo investigation. Seriously? And I hadn't even gotten the man's name, let alone his rank or speciality. But Matthews had waved me on. If this went wrong, I could pin the blame on him, right? No, that was childish. I'm sure. Thank you. As he dismissed me, he knelt down by the body and started looking at it, leaving me to walk away. I turned back half a dozen times, but he didn't seem to be doing anything, just staring. Waiting, perhaps. But then what for? Me to leave? My stomach tied itself in knots, and I looked at the dead woman's face. I didn't like leaving her here alone with him. Rank left me with no option, though. I dragged my heavy feet back to where I'd been standing, and was grateful to see that Matthews had wandered closer again. Sir, I said as I came up behind him. What's up? He asked. Despite the coffee cup hanging empty in his fingers, he looked rougher than he had earlier. Whoever the stranger with the body was, he sure could rile people up. Am I good to leave him alone? Sir, only protocol and all, Matthews snorted. Ha, protocol? Some fancy arse from God knows where rocks up, and suddenly we're ignoring it. Yeah, it's fine, Andrews. He's got special dispensation. Curiosity got the better of me. How come? Because of his impeccable completion rate. Solved more crimes than half of our department, by all accounts. So the sun shines from him, and we all have to bend over and worship. Damn it. If I knew we'd be standing around with our thumbs up our arses, I'd have gone and gotten another coffee. I bit back all my opinions on what that would do for the twitch under his eye, and watched as he walked away again. Curiosity was still burning inside me. Impeccable completion rate? What did that even mean? And if he worked alone, did that mean he had some secret technique for solving crimes? I headed back to my post, but when I got there, I checked over my shoulder. No one was watching. Not that they had any reason to. All the detectives were huddled together, all complaining, judging by the way they folded their arms or put their hands on their hips. They really were quite a melodramatic lot. The other uniforms about were scanning the area, sorting paperwork, checking maps, milling about, trying to look useful. There was no telling when a camera could appear. I slipped past my spot and retraced my steps back to the body. There couldn't be some secret technique for solving crimes. So what exactly was that guy doing? I had to know. And I had to know that it wasn't anything dodgy. Even with clearance from the boss, I'd brought the man out here and I'd left him here. He was my responsibility. Between the crispy leaves and my full uniform, it was hard to sneak. But I did the best I could until I got to a nearby tree. From there, I could lean round and watch the guy work. It took me a few moments and lots of blinking before I registered what I was seeing. The man was crouched on the ground where I'd left him, but he wasn't looking at the woman. He was focused on the pair of squirrels sat across from him, on the other side of the corpse. To add insult to injury, he was talking to them. So it wasn't an attack here. This was just a body dump. My shoulders slumped. A great detective, wonderful record, and his secret technique was explaining things to animals? My brother would talk out programming problems to his dog. But this was just ridiculous. At least, no one else saw my brother doing that. And at least he wasn't doing it for a murder inquiry. Yeah, the man knew her, was crying the whole time. I froze at the other voice. There was no way. Did he say anything? The detective asked. Yeah, the squirrel, replied. Kept apologizing, saying it was an accident. I'm sorry, that sort of thing. And then what? He took her shoes, the other goddamn squirrel said. Then he ripped her shirt, rumpled her clothes and all. She was properly dressed before she got here. He did all that here. Anything else? Don't think so. That all you need? Yes. Thank you. That's most helpful. The detective smiled and nodded at the squirrels before they turned and scurried away. My eyes were dry from the non-blinking staring, and I ran a hand across my face. There was no way I just saw that. Had Matthews infected me with his hangover? The detective pulled out his notebook and jotted down some notes before he looked up and round the clearing. I only just ducked back behind the tree in time. Is there anyone else? He said, just loud enough to carry, but not enough to reach back to to where the other officers were. Heaven forbid they see him talking to the animals. On cue, a mouse scurried up and perched on a branch sticking out of the leaves. "Yes," it said. "And what did you see?" "See? Not much. But they smelt the same. Her and the one who brought her. Exactly the same? Like they lived together?" "Just so. Thank you. Anything else?" "No. Don't see much, I'm afraid." "No worries. Thank you for your help anyway." The mouse scurried away as the detective made more notes, and the last strand of my sanity snapped. I stormed out from my hiding space, oblivious to the fact I was marching through a crime scene. "All right, what the hell is going on?" I said. The detective jumped to his feet, guilty as though he'd killed the woman, before a carefully schooled expression took over. "I am investigating this murder, officer. You should be back at your post." "No, none of that. What the hell is happening? How the hell are the animals talking? And why the hell are you so calm about it?" "Miss, I can assure you..." He cut off mid-sentence and stared at me as though I was the weird one in this scenario. "Hang on? Talking? Don't pull that crap with me. I saw you taking notes. You heard them, but so did you." "You heard the animals talking?" "Yes, but how?" He ignored the anguish in my voice and just kept staring. I was halfway through, weighing up whether to just punch him, assaulting a superior, and how would I explain why, when he broke into huge grin. I hadn't realized how morose he'd looked before, and I blushed at the sheer childlike joy on his face. "I've never met anyone else like this before," he whispered. "Hey, prove it. Mouse, come back." The mouse scurried up again, though it shuffled away when it saw me. "Yes?" The detective spun to me and nodded. "Go on. Talk to it." I said. Would this count as playing along? Or was I losing my mind as well? For the first time in my life, I wanted nothing more than to be on guard duty. "Hello? Mouse?" "Greetings," the mouse said with a little bow. I shook my head. I wasn't bowing to a mouse. "Yes, fine. Greetings. Are we done now?" I asked the detective. "Because I am currently talking to a mouse, and I would like some explanations. One more thing," he said. "Ask it about the weather. Are you for real right now? Just do it." I rolled my eyes, but academy training was hard to kick. Someone says jump. You ask how high, or ask after the weather. "How's the weather?" I said to the mouse with a wild grin on my face. "Fair," the mouse replied. "The leaves are falling early this year, but the rain has stayed off for now." "Great." The detective took a step towards me and peered at my face. "What did he say?" "You heard what it said." "No, you tell me." "Repeat what the mouse said." Shaking my head at the stupidity of the statement, I did as I was told. "The leaves are falling early, but the rain has stayed off for now." Is that it? Are we done with this madness now? You really did hear it. "Yes, I told you that." "Yes, I'm sorry." I just had to make sure that you weren't lying. All sense of decorum went out the window. Look, mate, of all the things I'm going to lie about, I can hear mice complain about the weather. Isn't one of them. The detective ran a hand across his hair and smiled sheepishly. Yeah, guess not. I'm sorry. Like I said, I've never met anyone else who can do this. I had to be sure, but how? How are we hearing animals, Doc? No idea. I've never found any explanation or even a suggestion that it's happened before. Then how did I discover it? I used to do it as a kid, but then I figured it was just something wrong with my head. One day, I got fed up at a crime scene, saw a squirrel, and asked for help. And it led me right to where the stolen goods had been stashed. Insurance fraud. And I proved it in about 10 minutes. From there, it just kind of grew. So what, you're Detective Inspector Doolittle? He laughed and looked even younger as years of secrets drifted away from him. Something like that, I guess. What happened here then? He looked down at the body, and the smile dropped. Accidental death. Deliberate dumping. She died in her home, I reckon. Maybe a fight. Maybe sheer unhappy chance. Her partner panicked, knew about all the murders out here, so came and dumped her here. Maybe he's got a record or something, but I've got a registration number for the car, so we can go and check it out. By the sounds of it, he's feeling guilty, so it shouldn't take long to push him to a confession. I had been nodding along till I fixated on one word. We? He looked back at me and blushed. I thought so. I mean, I could use a hand working all these cases, and you can work the same way as me. Hold on, you mean become a detective? Don't you want to? I mean, in truth, I hadn't thought about it until then. My eyes fell to the corpse again. How many things had she been planning to do, or put off doing? I had to swallow the lump out my throat before I could answer, though. All right, I'm in. Assuming you can sort it with the boss. The detective grinned at me. I have a lot of pull. I can figure something out. He stuck his hand out, which I took. Detective Inspector Christopher Griffiths, Officer Iris Andrews. A pleasure to meet you, Iris. Now, let's go talk to a murderer, shall we? How to rob a library. Harry was ready. Harry hated books. The plan was simple. If he robbed the library, there would be no books to read. No books equals no library. Even if the library wanted to buy new books, they would have no place to put them. Phase 10 of the plan was to burn the library to the ground. The mission was ready to go. Phase 1. Knock out any guards. You will need fry pan and 2 ropes. The guards wouldn't stand a chance. There were only 2 of them anyway. What harm could they do? The answer to that was a lot of damage. The guards had been trained in the martial arts, so if you stood in their way, you were burnt toast. Good thing Harry wasn't bred, or the mission would be even more difficult. He slowly crept through the bushes, holding his fry pan in one hand and the rope in the other. Soon he saw a light getting close. A guard was coming. Piece of cake, Harry thought. This was going to be fun. Ding! The guard fell down to the floor, so he was tied to a tree. One down, one to go. Slowly, Harry crept out of the bushes and looked around. Where was the guard? "Hey, you! Stop right there!" called a voice from behind him. Time for real fun. Harry swung the fry pan through the air, and with a thunk, it came to rest on the guard's head. Thud. Time for Phase 2 of the plan. Phase 2. Disable the security cameras. You will need the pickaxe to be sure that no one found him out tomorrow. Harry would have to hide a lot of evidence, like knocking out the guards. All he had to do was smash all the cameras around him. There were about 20 of them, scattered around the place. Number 1. Harry threw the pickaxe through the air. Bullseye. Number 2. It spotted him before he saw it, but no evidence remains now. Number 3, 4, 5, 6. Too easy. Number 7. Whoever designed this must have thought that 1-year-olds were the only criminals around. The rest were too easy to be recorded. Time for Phase 3. Phase 3. Shoot a window on the top floor of the library. You will need a gun. Harry took a deep breath. He got one shot at this. That was all. If he missed, he would have to reshoot. Then it would be more likely people had heard the shots and come to invigilate. Ready, aim, fire. Bang. Smash. The shot couldn't have been better. The window shattered instantly. Time for Phase 4. Phase 4. Climb up the library. Don't do with adult supervision. You will need a rope. Harry took a deep breath. It was time to climb. Using all of his force, he threw the rope up to the smashed window. Then he began to climb up the library. Error in the plan. It has recently rained, and the building is now very slippery. There was no safety gear added to the list. A slip will result in being in a coffin. Harry was about halfway up the 10-meter-high building when the error came into place. He tried to take another step. He slipped and fell. Luckily, he grabbed the rope just in time, so he got away with just a few scratches. So much for a library being a safe place for kids, he thought. Finally, he reached the top. It was time for Phase 5. Phase 5. Take down the librarian. The librarian will never leave. It's post, not even after hours. You will need glue and the remaining rope. Harry looked around, knowing the librarian could be anywhere, watching him. He got to work covering the floor with glue. It was going to be a sticky trap to fall into. time to do the fun bit. Make noise. One thing you should know about librarians is they hate noise. Shh is one of their favorite words to use. So, noise would be the bait to the trap. Harry counted to 3, and then, boom. He rejected at the top of his voice. A second later, he heard footsteps coming towards him. "I'm over here!" he cried. The librarian turned around and scowled. "Come here, boy." She yielded, taking a step forward. Squelch. She soon found herself glued to the floor. Now it was time to tie her up, just for the fun of it. Time for Phase 6. Phase 6. Rob the books. You will need a sack. Harry did that immediately, so I won't record that. Phase 7. Get ready to set the fire. You will need some of the stolen goods and petrol. Fun was rising in Harry's soul. Time to get ready for the fire. He walked up to the tied librarian and grinned. Then he ripped some of the books to shreds. Then he sprinkled them all around the room. That was just the beginning. Time for the petrol. Harry ran around the room, pouring it everywhere. The librarian looked furious. That made Harry feel a sense of achievement. Phase 8. Make sure the librarian won't get killed in the fire. You won't need anything. Harry walked up to the librarian. "I'm sorry, miss, but I'm going to have to throw you out the window," he said. The librarian looked furiously at him. "Did you not know that a librarian never leaves its post?" She screamed angrily. "Oh well," thought Harry, "so be it." Phase 8 has been cancelled. Phase 9. Make sure you can escape easily. You will need a safe place. Harry looked around the room. He couldn't go through the window because the rope would catch fire. He couldn't just stay here, though. He had to do something. It was then that Harry realized that there was a door to the library, so he could just escape through it. Too bad it can't be a bit dramatic, he thought. Phase 10. Light the fire. You will need the matches. Flick. Harry struck the match. Then he walked over to the petrol. Then he set the fire. He now had just 3 minutes to escape. Fire was already everywhere the eye could see. It was time for the next phase. Phase 11. Escape the library. You will need lots of luck. Without looking back at the screaming librarian, Harry raced downstairs. The fire chased him the whole way. It didn't stop until Harry wasn't out of the library. By now, the building was alight in the darkness, so the firemen and police would be here. Phase 12. Throw the sack of books in the river. You will need the sack of books. Harry raced down to the cold, dark river. It was time to get rid of the books. Without hesitation, he threw the books into the murky depths. He smiled as he watched them go. Phase 13. Act innocent. Sirens wailed as the police came to the scene. Time to do the job. Harry walked right past the police, and they didn't notice. Who would expect a kid to break into a library and murder someone anyway? For more information on how to do damage, please go to your local library, if it hasn't been burnt down, and find more of our how-to guides. The Cursed Town. Content warning. Murder, suicide. He walked up through the dusty road which led to the small town of Timmins. It was twilight, and a light wind was blowing. Far away, the crop plantations acquired a greenish-orange color due to the light of the sun. On the other side, one could catch a faint glimpse of the Timmins church, with its tall steeple standing majestically high up in the sky. The yellow-orange hue of the sky washed the town, and the muddy red road was illuminated with a touch of gradient yellow. The whole town looked peaceful, and surprisingly, nobody was outside their houses. He entered the town and looked at the banyan tree in front of him. It had remained much the same. He looked up at the houses and walked towards them. Darkness was falling now. The red-orange hue was slowly swept away, and a dark blue color entered, only with a touch of crimson at its bottom. Shadows fell here and there, creating a spooky atmosphere, and he quickened his pace, as if to avoid the evil spell cast by the shadows of the houses. The moon came up, not too bright, for clouds were starting to surround it from all sides. He glanced upwards and realized that he had to take shelter somewhere. Rainfall could occur any time now. He walked through the dusty and muddy road and looked here around for inns, but there were none. Finally, he found a big apartment, which was deserted. He let out a sigh of relief and walked up the stairs and entered the apartment. It was evident that the apartment was still under construction work. It was not completed. However, years of neglect had withered away the raw smell of the brick walls, and small plants could be seen, growing almost everywhere. All of them had a feeling of evil in them. The brick walls, the plants, the floors, and even the ceiling. It was like they had witnessed a lot of sad events and were telling him not to go further inside the house. The house itself was spooky, with its large corridors and almost no rooms. A huge, round staircase led to the other floors. The grayish appearance of the apartment matched perfectly with his gray and withered t-shirt and pants. He went up the staircase and reached the terrace. It was broad and wide, and one could see the beautiful town stretched before it. He looked down and was surprised to see an old woman with a lantern standing in the doorway of the apartment, waving her hands to call him. He descended the staircase and ran out of the apartment to meet the old woman. The woman was short in stature and had gray hair, with sometimes a tint of black in them. Her face was wrinkled, and she looked at him through her cat-green eyes, piercingly. "What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. "I am a visitor, and I came here for certain business matters. I could not find any inn to spend the night in, so I came here," he said. She looked at him suspiciously, and then said, "Okay, you better come with me. This place is not good, especially at night." He nodded his head and followed the old woman. He was cold with fear and could not understand what was happening. He followed her till they reached a cottage, and the old woman asked him to enter. He went inside and enjoyed the warmth of the fire which was lit. He sat down on a sofa, and the woman came to her with a candle. She placed the candle on the table and handed him a plate. "You must be hungry. Here, have some food. You better not go to the apartment anymore." "Why?" he asked. "It's a long story. I have seen too much of this world to remember happy deeds. Most are evil." "What do you actually mean? Do you want to hear?" "Yes, I do." She took a long, deep breath and then began. "Long ago, when I was about 17 years of age, there used to live a plantation owner named Hamilton. He had a lot of money and was very rich. You see those plantations? All those were Sir Hamilton's. He was not only rich, but kind and generous too. He used to donate with open hands. He had a beautiful wife, 4 daughters, and 1 son. However, naturally, his neighbors were very jealous of him and despised him. He did not care that much for that. But one day, his neighbors attacked his family. His daughters were of almost my age then, and the son was only a baby. They killed his daughters and his wife, but somehow Hamilton and his son were able to escape. "Why did not Hamilton inform the police?" he asked. "There was no evidence against the neighbors. He had nothing to do. I later heard that he had fled somewhere to Canada." "But how does it relate to the apartment?" The old woman sighed. Her green eyes glistened, and she said, "The apartment was being made by Hamilton. He wanted to turn it into a hospital." "Yes, but how does that matter anyway?" Rain had started falling heavily, and the fire and candle went out. The 2 people were left in total darkness. However, he could still see the old woman's eyes glistening. The old woman said, "For the past few years, there had been a lot of suicides there. Many girls of around 16, 17 years are committing suicide there. It all started with the daughter of Mrs. Morpin. She jumped from the terrace you were standing a few minutes ago. The second case was of Mrs. Rayon's daughter. She was found hanging from the chandelier one morning, her face white and terror-stricken." He was taken aback and looked at the old woman with wide and fearful eyes. Lightning struck, illuminating the whole room for a moment, and he could see the old woman's face, ugly, wrinkled with a strong, piercing glance, which was almost witch-like. He wanted to run out of the house, but some strange power kept him rooted to his seat. The old woman said, "You better go to sleep now. I guess you had a very tiresome day." The old woman showed him his bedroom, and he fell down on his bed, immediately asleep. The next morning, when he woke up, he could see the sun shining brilliantly outside. He heaved himself up and went to the living room. The old woman was preparing coffee. She handed him a cup, and he sat down on the sofa. He drank from the cup the delicious, thick cappuccino and felt refreshed. He almost forgot all the horrible incidents from yesterday night. "Where do you want to go today? I can show you the way. It is evident that you are new to this place, as you were talking about inns in here. I have heard about Kingsman's Place here. Can you please take me there?" "Kingsman's Place? Okay, I will. It is a business center here. When do you want to go?" "About 9:30. What do you say? Please prepare a packed lunch for me." "Of course. Get ready then." He went back to his bedroom and took out his suitcase. He looked at himself in the mirror. He was middle-aged, but still, he looked pretty young. He brought out a coat, shirt, and pant and put it on. He looked the perfect businessman. After having breakfast, the two went out. On the way, they came across the Flint River. There he saw some girls whispering and talking together. One of them was extremely beautiful. Her fair skin with an orange tint made one remember pure milk. Her eyes were a deep blue, and she had beautiful black eyelashes. Her cheeks were pink, and her lips were a light red. Her mass of curls was thrown at her back, and she wore a pretty green dress. Her hands were well-toned, and her legs were slender and well-shaped. She looked a pretty picture. He stared at her for some time, and then she turned to the old woman, and pointing to the girl, he asked, "Who is that girl?" The old woman glanced at the girl and then said, "She is Mr. Trudeau's daughter. Pretty, isn't she?" "Yes," he said. "What is her age?" "About 17. He sighed and gestured at the old woman to move forward. They reached Kingsman's Place, and the old woman left him there with his lunchbox. He did not wait there. As soon as the old woman was out of sight, he started running. He did not stop until he reached the old building. He entered and went up to the terrace. The terrace was absolutely empty. Despite being so large, the parapets were very low, and there were high risks of falling to death in case of an accidental slip. Unlike the rest of the house, almost no plants were there on the terrace due to some unknown reason. He roamed here and there on the terrace. He stepped very carefully, and whenever he looked down, he was sick at the sight of houses so far down below. He hated heights and was afraid of them. He went downstairs and waited. "You know, Laura, I will go to Grandma Fontaine's house today." The words kept ringing in his mind. To reach Grandma Fontaine's house, she had to cross this building. There she was coming. Alone. Nobody was with her. He waited silently, and as soon as she came in front of the apartment, he gripped her hand and pulled her inside. Before she could scream, he put a handkerchief under her nose, and smelling the chloroform, she fell unconscious. He now prepared for it. He dragged her upstairs to the terrace and carefully washed her face. He then threw her down the parapet, and she landed with a loud thud sound. Dead. Yes, she was dead. Blood was flowing from her, and her pretty face was peaceful. He quickly fled from the place before anybody could see him. He did not return to the old woman's house. He kept walking towards the outskirts of the town. It would take him almost 3 hours to get out. He had seen his own sisters and mother get killed in front of him. Those Morpins, Rayons, Trudeaus, and Greys have killed them out of jealousy. He and his father had somehow fled. But after some time, his father also died. He died saying, "Kill Morpin, kill Trudeau, kill Rayon, kill Grey. Don't let them live." He had done that. He had killed all of them, except Grey's daughter. He would be back for her after the next 4 years. Yes, he would not let her live. They do not deserve to live. They had destroyed his life. He would destroy theirs. He would not let them be happy when his own happiness had been snatched away from him. Never. He looked back at the town. It was twilight yet again. The town looked peaceful, but he could hear faint sounds of crying. Let them cry. They will have to cry again after 4 years. He turned and walked away from the town as darkness fell and made the town silent. The chants of a half-dead man and Dr. Jane White sound filled the living room as Jane struggled to find her TV remote. Soft pillows scattered all over the carpet, leaving a minimal space for Jane to stomp around angrily. She never liked the white sound. Haunting as it is, Jane tried to calm herself and collect memories of where she placed her TV remote. Her hand slips into the crease and the fold of her sofa, grasping at the empty space in between. Jane moved her hand slowly to the corner of her sofa, and her hand finally hit something. She grabbed the object and surprised when she saw it was her remote, aging with the dust that have reside inside her sofa. Relieve. Welcome her as she turned the TV off. Something heavy still tugging at her mind. If she hadn't been working so late, she might not miss her favorite show again this week. A soft tune started to pull her way from her tired mind. Jane rise to find her phone. Ugh, again? Why do I keep forgetting my things? Her lovely mother would be laughing at her for such silly behavior a doctor can have. Jane suddenly misses her. It's been 5 years since her mother passed away. Yet her laughter and smile still here with Jane. She hopes it will never fade away. Jane lifted her foot carefully to walk between the messy pillows, focusing herself on the tunes from her phone. One missed call had waited for her before another call struck. Jane was shocked that her cousin was the caller, for it was highly unusual of Charles to call late at night. Wave of panic came knocking before Jane braced herself to pick up the call. "Hello, Jane?" Charles's voice was shaky. Panic surged through Jane completely. "Charles, are you okay?" Jane started to walk away from her living room. I need help, Jane. Can you come to my house right now and bring your medical bag? Please, Jane." A lightning strike her heart, and Jane ran to her room upstairs. "I'll be there. Don't worry, Charles. You're going to be okay." She hated to ask questions, especially the ones she knew she won't like the answer. Charles have a dire reason why to call Jane that night. They were close when they were kids. Their memories of childhood are blended together. Not a single memory without each other. Jane was driving at a high speed because the stream in her head won't stop worrying about Charles. She had tried to blur it out, just like every bloody wound she had to stitch, and every smile she had to put at the end of it all. She won't be okay at the end of the road for this, but being a doctor and a friend for Jane means more than her mental state. What become of it is that Jane can only feel the cold wind of the night. No more warmth. Every time she looked at the mirror, all she can think about is how dark her eyes are and what people might think happened to her when they saw it. Jane slowed down her car as she drives towards the house gate. For a businessman, Charles was very successful. Family and friends never knew what he was selling or buying to be this rich, almost drowning in his own gold, really. The gate automatically moved to open up a path for guests. Optical sensors and cameras cover every inch of the house entry, watching its newcomer every day. Authentic English patterns made the dark metals of the gate seem stronger, unbreakable. Solid walls keeping the vulnerable secrets safe within. Smoke diffused and expanded from his cigarette as Jane watched an old man waiting for her at the lobby. A familiar face running close behind him. Charles. Quick! Chandelier lights glimmer above. Its reflection made Jane's dark red hair burns with shades of amber. Jane rushed inside the grand house, certain of her steps, diving into the role of Dr. Jane again. Blood trails all over the white marble of the house. Charles led the way into a dark hall, then down the stairs. The room was more like a morgue than a basement, or maybe a combination of both. Jane can't tell why Charles has this odd room. She was expecting a knife cut, or maybe a sprained ankle, rather than a grim room, that smell of blood and alcohol. Charles seemed fine and had no difficulties in movement when Jane saw him. Another man had been waiting instead of those images of Charles hurting. His skin was pale despite having a bronze tone. Bluish shade of his lips and under eyes removed the warmth of a living man. He had lost a lot of blood. Jane began to worry that he might not survive. Charles held the man's hand as he waited for Jane to prepare her kit. The mysterious man was bare-chested. Someone tore his shirt to press it on his wounds. "No, I forgot my suture. I can't patch him up." "I got it. Anything that you need. Here." Charles pointed at a small white cupboard not far from him. Through the glass, Jane saw a complete collection of basic surgical equipment. She stopped for a moment, wondering how come a normal businessman own a complete surgical equipment. Maybe countless times he had been in this situation. "Jane, hurry, please." The word struck like a punch in the face. Jane does not want to let her suspicion rise and get the best of her. The mysterious man needed Dr. Jane, and that is what he will get. Jane laid all the medical equipment on the table next to the surgical bed. One thing was missing from Charles's collection: the anesthetic. "You don't happen to have any anesthetic, do you?" Jane feared the answer to her own question. His ocean eyes moved from left to right in distress, trying to figure something out, debating a will within himself. A simple headshake is what he gave in the end. Jane tried to collect herself and keep a steady state, both for herself and Charles. She hates to see someone hurt, and she hates to be the one doing the hurting. There's no one in the room but the three of them. That gave Jane an unexpected relief. Slowly, and one by one, she overcome the surgery. Aseptic conditions before reaching for the gloves and mask. Deep breaths before examining the wound. A small pause before sanitizing it with iodine. The brown liquid trickled down from each sides of the wound. His right shoulder was the first one she cleaned, then the one above the abdomen, a little to the left, almost to the heart. Whoever struck this man have planned the attack, explicitly to weaken this man before struck his heart. Jane examined the red line on his shoulder. It was clean. Very sharp object. Not too wide, not too deep. The angle of it looked like there was a struggle before the object wounded his skin. A gash under his eyes said the same thing, but the object seems to be blunt. Bruises accompanied his jaw and cheekbones. As the time passed by, Jane worried that his features will match his bruises. If she can be fast enough, maybe this man will live. Jane started to understand the rhythm of Charles's breathing. He was so still when Jane punctured the first needle to stitch the man's right shoulder. Then Charles started to ease up when she moved to the next wound. closing each bloody gap, step by step. All the hours spent at the hospital always meant something to her. It is not only to fix physically, but also mentally. People got attached to so many things in their life. Countless things. They can't properly heal until there is nothing left but the old traces of scar. As a surgeon, Jane always felt she fixed people, gave them a help to heal. Fixing and giving, that is all there ever was. Helping people to find their strength again, grow from their experience. She was there when a mother cried for her dead son, taken too soon after 5 years of battling leukemia. She was there when a single father decided to permit donation of his son's organs. The son died of car crash. She had failed to save their child, but she was there to help them heal too. She told them of how their child fight for them, thinking of their family at their last moments. There are times when Jane gave a mother her newborn conjoined twins, separated by surgery, but all well and healthy. They will have a scar forever, but that scar will be a reminder of their fight, even before they can remember. Jane had been a part of that. She was more than glad to be a part of that. Mother always told her to help people. Do everything from the bottom of her heart, genuine and certain. Believe that there will be a relief for every difficulty. As the last stitch sealed, Jane released a slow breath. She placed clean pieces of bandage over the man's wound. Though not as pale as he once was, the man was laying still and unconscious on the table. He might wake soon after this. Make sure he's hydrated. No alcohol, Charles nodded, his eyes distant. He's holding his breath, waiting for the moment when the mysterious man finally opened his eyes. Charles looks almost drowning in fear. Something glinted in his eyes, something Jane never seen before. One question: what happened? Jane hated the question. It would be easier for her if Charles just spill everything. They both know it won't happen. Jane took her gloves and mask off, avoiding Charles's eyes. Still, she wanted to hear everything in its full truth. You know I can't. You don't want to get involved more than you already are. His eyebrows creased. Anger and regret rise up in him at the same time, waiting for Charles to open the door and release them. For so many reasons, he deserves to feel that way tonight. Okay, it's obvious, Charles. Her eyes darted to him. Jane realized tears had gathered in his eyes and slowly spilling out. What do you mean? Charles ran a hand through his hair. Memories, uninvited, flashing in his brain. If you're going to play game of secrets, so be it. There is a long and dangerous story behind this. Jane, sure of it. It is not her place to push Charles. A shallow understanding came for her, like leeches. Heavy for now, but light for later, she thought. He got some deep wounds. He barely makes it. At least, if you care about him, you'll need me again. What had the help meant? What was the urging reason for a woman to save a mysterious, half-dead man in the middle of the night? Something in her awaken. A warrior, ready to take everything by the tip of her spear. Jane saved a man. She will give him medications. Help him gain his health again. A chance to build again. Jane fear the chance will take chances. Can it be real? Had she just saved a criminal's life? What does the fixing and giving means now? Stream of thoughts had preceded her kind intentions, leaving the cold and soundless room behind her. Jane walked away. Thoughts kill. I held in my cough as I entered the bathroom, senses already on high alert. Smoke unfurled around, blinding me for a moment. It took a second to gauge my surroundings, but once I had, it came as no surprise to see my older brother standing in their group. The only boy in here. After all, this was a ladies' bathroom. I watched in the mirror as the cigarette got passed around. A girl with pouting lips, caked in maroon lipstick, passed it to my brother. His lazy smile at her and the smoke around were in competition to make me nauseous. A familiar bubble of bile arose in my throat as he puffed out carbon monoxide. I clenched my nostril muscles, focusing on fixing my hair in the bathroom mirror. Luckily for me, I hadn't been spotted yet. They all started laughing as he did some kind of trick with the smoke. My eyes were so narrowed now, I could hardly see out of them. Once my hair was done, I walked over to the door, palm raised to open it, when a girl's voice said, "It's coming tomorrow," my brother's voice answered. "The LSD?" "Shut up!" the girl barked, leaving the bathroom deathly silent. I felt his eyes on my back before I saw them. Next thing I knew, I was slammed into the bathroom wall, inches from a familiar face. His lip curled. "Hello, sister." "Your sister?" the girl asked. She better not be a snitch. My brother didn't answer. I took refuge in the fact that I knew secrets of his that he'd rather die than let his friends know. Or that I knew he still had nightmares about Dad. Or that he used his blanket as a tissue for his snotty nose. His breath steamed on the mirror next to my head as he leaned in harder, earning a yelp from me as I felt his shirt button press in. "Don't let me find you in here again." I arched an eyebrow in response, trying to mask the turmoil inside. "LSD? No way." "Oh, brother, should I tell them?" He read all his secrets on my face. "Go to hell," he snarled. I held out my hand in answer. He looked ready to spit on me as he pulled out a $5 from his pocket. I shook my head with a smile. He took out another. I took the money from him, squirmed out from the bathroom, and contemplated calling Mom. I knew Caleb drug dealt, but this? Everyone knew it never stopped at cigarette draw. It had only been a matter of time, and that night I gave the money to Mum with a too bright smile. "You know, honey, I don't need a commission from the money you earn. The job pays well, Mum," I said with a shrug, the lie spilling from my mouth like silk. She gave me a side hug, then carried on with her work. I lingered for a moment, at odds on whether I should tell her. But when I saw her eyebrows sink into a furrow, her lips into a frown, I decided that she had enough on her plate. When the front door slammed, indicating my brother was home from God knows where, neither my mum nor I left our rooms to greet him. The ritual had been long gone since Dad had left. Well, Dad's hello was more actions than words to Caleb. I can't deny that I hadn't felt the want to stop him all the time. Hearing his footsteps outside my door, a feeling of hate so red clouded my mind that I found it hard to breathe. Mum was at the epicenter of it all. Her money had all been stolen by him for the drugs he was addicted to, then played off as a fraud. I was simply recycling the money back to the owner. It was tough falling asleep that night, knowing I couldn't stop what was going to happen tomorrow. But even if I could, I wouldn't. I wanted him to hit rock bottom. That was the only hope for change for him. And maybe that made me a sucky person. Hell, the worst person. But it's what he deserved in my eyes. The pain I saw flit on my mother's eyes when he'd come home drunk a few weeks ago was enough to make my fiery personality want to put a bullet through his heart. I avoided that bathroom at all costs on Tuesday. There was no way I'd be near choked again. I'd had to cover the bruises from yesterday up with a woolen scarf. In summer, I looked like a right idiot. School went smoothly. Well, as smoothly as a high school day in America can possibly go. And then I was home. I put my phone on DND, the thoughts running through my mind demanding instant attention. Being home alone was one of my favorite things. Just my mind and I. I sat on my windowsill, watching the city below me. There was something so serene in feeling the wind play on your face, to be isolated, but to also see hundreds of people below you, hustling around. I wonder if this is how God feels. I don't know how long I sat there for, but when I next opened my eyes, the sky was pitch black, and the city was now bustling with partygoers, dressed in sparkling dresses, with equally shiny champagne glasses in hand. I quickly climbed inside, wondering why my mum hadn't called for me yet. But then I heard a noise from her room. I hadn't realized how tight my chest had gotten, but it loosened as I felt her presence in the house. Caleb wasn't home yet. "Mom?" I asked, tentatively pushing her door open with a toe. I got a shock when I saw her bloodshot eyes turn up to look at me, tears streaming down and mixing with her mascara. I rushed to her side. "Mom? What's wrong?" I asked, a little forcefully, the panic already rising. Her eyes held mine as she whispered the words I thought I'd never hear. "Caleb is dead." Cha. The phone finally rang. It had been 5 days. The investigators said they'd call once they found out what had happened. "LSD doesn't kill," I murmur to myself, over and over. But it doesn't change the fact of what happened. "Hello?" I answered, words tasting weird on my mouth after not talking for nearly a week. "Is your mother there?" I passed the phone to my already crying mom, leaning in to listen over her shoulder. I only got bits and pieces. 5 minutes later, my mother put down the phone, hand still trembling. It wasn't LSD. He didn't take LSD, so he took something else? She shook her head, her throat bobbing as she swallowed a sob. The supplier sold them a synthetic drug as LSD. I had one goal. One, to put that supplier behind bars for the rest of his life. Maybe that would take away the guilt that I practically killed my own brother, hoodwinked. The only thing worse than tracing a witness 5 years after is to find out he has forgotten all about the crime, or at least the bits that matter. But Detective Syed was no greenhorn. He smiled at the 19-year-old who was sitting across the table devouring his second plate of chicken kafriel. "So, is the chicken tangy enough?" "Yes, Detective. Thank you for buying me lunch." Daniel D'Souza grinned, his cheeks still plump with the spicy treat tucked in. "Not at all. Thanks for agreeing to meet me here." Detective Syed swirled the sparkling water, then took another swig. It was a hot April afternoon, and Baga Beach looked bare. "I know it's hard for you to talk about it, but what you can tell me can save a life." The fork fell into the green sauce, and the young man picked it back up. He wiped the corners of his mouth with the paper napkin Britos had stacked at every table, and met Detective Syed's gaze. "Sir, I was just 14 at the time and was visiting my uncle and helped him in his gallery that sold souvenirs and other knickknacks." Detective Syed completed the statement and cataloged the antiques. It was off-season, and he had very few customers walking in. "So, you used to stay till the shop closed in the evening?" "Yes." "And what time would it close?" "All shops in Panaji close around 8 p.m. "I thought you knew it," the youngster snorted. "So, you closed at 8 p.m. every evening?" "Yes." "No exceptions?" "Not any that I can recall." "Well, on the 30th of April, 2016, it was open at least till 9:30 p.m. Afterwards, the CCTV blanked out." "Oh, it was the last day of the month." "Maybe it was open for stock taking." "Staying open late at night after a whole day of no business?" Detective Syed cocked his left eyebrow. "Detective, can I leave now? I'm not feeling too well, and I can't recall much." Daniel tried to slide out of his bamboo chair. The detective's eyes held steady. "Daniel, I have not even started asking anything yet. And you know I'm going to get to it one way or the other. So, why don't you help me out here?" "I can be of no help to you, Detective. I shouldn't even have come here. It was a mistake." Daniel got up and hobbled on the slippery sand. Detective Syed cleared his throat and said in a voice that rose above the waves that crashed outside, "We went through the old CCTV footage. It shows someone coming out of the shop at 9:30 p.m. Daniel stopped in his tracks and turned. He walked back to the table and growled. You know, Detective, I was a minor at the time and can't be charged with anything. True, but you could have been sent to a juvenile detention center. Could have been, but wasn't. Wait, for what? Daniel's face turned red. For whatever you didn't confess to, Detective Syed said in an even tone as he gestured for Daniel to sit down. We are not here to talk about it, though. We are here to discuss the footage we got from Tanishq Jewelry 3 days ago. Daniel's sported the same look as the fish kept on the ice at the entrance. So, Daniel, how about you sit down and I'll order you a bibinka? No, thanks. I'm full. What is it that you want to know? Daniel, on the night of 30th April 2016, between 9 to 10 p.m., robbers drilled a hole in the back wall of Swarna Jewelers and hauled the stuff worth INR 8 crore with them. As you already know, it's next to Pablo's gallery. You didn't hear anything? No. As my uncle said at the time, I was not there. Daniel rasped through a clenched jaw, which we know now is not true. How can you say that? I'm sure many own a hoodie of the same brand, but I'm sure they will not be wearing one on a humid April night. And who said anything about a hoodie? What hoodie? Daniel countered. Detective Syed let out a chuckle. He knew it was the best antidote for teenage bravado. Okay, the same one that the CCTV outside Tanishq captured 3 days ago. This one should be easier to remember. Daniel's face turned pale. What is the connection between the two? You tell me. The detective parleyed in a calm voice. Okay, I was helping my uncle at the store the night Swarna Jewelers was looted. But I swear, we didn't hear a thing. We had almost finished when a man in a dark blue hoodie turned up at the store asking for a lighter. He was wearing shades, and I found that suspicious. He didn't realize I was watching him as he took out his wallet and dropped a gun. My uncle at the register could not see it, but I did. The vase in my hand fell, and the next moment, the gun was pointed at me. Okay, what happened next? I can't remember what exactly happened. Daniel's eyes were like the floodgates about to be opened. Detective Syed leaned back on his tubby chair, rocked the back of his head in his knitted hands, and cajoled. Take a deep breath and try again. That bibinka is still on the offer? I think my uncle begged him to spare me. The man asked us to turn off the CCTV and stay in the shop, and left. Was that what happened? Yes. And you left the city the next day to return after 5 years? Yes. Only the new CCTV footage we found from Tanishq across the street tells a different story. Detective Syed leaned forward and drummed his fingers on the table. Which is, Daniel sniggered, the man in the hoodie never walked out of the gallery. Daniel's eyes went wide. But you said you saw him walk out. No, it was a 14-year-old who walked out wearing a dead man's hoodie. Daniel gulped air. Detective Syed half shut his eyes, scratched his chin, and continued, and walked back into Tanishq store 3 days ago. and quite possibly other places across Goa before that. I have a theory. He was tracked down by the fellow robbers of the dead man. They made him an offer he could not refuse. Be a part of their gang, or go to juvie for murder. Daniel's face went blank. He whispered in a trembling voice, "Nice theory. I came back as I got admission into a college in the city, which is a nice cover-up. Daniel, you don't have to tell me what happened at the gallery that night. And I think I know the reason why you wore the same hoodie. Which is? Supposing your theory is correct, you wanted to be rescued. Is that a possibility?" Daniel's eyes begged, still too scared to be hopeful. "Yes, if you can help nab the gang and finish eating bibinka